Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Emily Ferrier, here to bring you some uplifting stories in these trying times. For our first story today, when a Minnesota state trooper pulled over Dr. Sarosh Ashrev for driving above the speed limit in her car last week, she assumed she was going to be ticketed for the offense. Upon handing the policeman her Massachusetts driver's license, she explained how she flies out to Minnesota from Boston once a week in order to do cardiology work at local hospitals. He went back to his patrol car to look up my license, and when he returned, he quite firmly told me it was very irresponsible of me to be speeding, especially since I would not only take up resources if I got into the accident, but I would also not be in a position to help patients, 37-year-old Janara recounted on Facebook. Feeling thoroughly chastised, I waited for him to write me a ticket. Instead, he told me he was going to let me off with a warning. As I sputtered to apologize and say thank you, he reached into hand me what I assumed was my license back. To her surprise, the officer had handed her 5 new number 95 masks from his own personal state-supplied stash. I burst into tears, and though it may just have been the cold wind, I think he teared up a little as well. Before wishing me well and walking away, she continued. Like all healthcare workers and emergency responders around the world, I felt afraid of not having adequate protective equipment, and in my darkest moments have worried about what would happen if I fell sick far from home. This complete stranger, who owed me nothing and is more on the front lines than I am, shared his precious masks with me without my even asking, she said. The veil of civilization may be thin, but we are going to be okay. The state trooper, who was later identified as Brian J. Schwartz, said that he was simply hoping to support hardworking healthcare professionals combating the novel coronavirus outbreaks in Duluth. Thank you for her hard work and dedication, wrote the state trooper on the Facebook page. Troopers are working hard during the pandemic, and we are thinking about all the first responders who are caring for Minnesotans during this critical time. The Russian government has reportedly deployed their largest cargo plane filled with medical supplies and bound for the United States as a means of helping curb national shortages. According to Reuters, the AN-124 Russian plane carrying face masks, medical gowns, and hospital equipment left Moscow yesterday evening. Although the gesture of assistance has generated mixed political feedback as a result of ongoing strains between Russia and the U.S. in the last few years, the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C., quoted the Russian president's press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, saying, "Being aware of the serious epidemiological situation in America, the Russian side offered medical equipment and protective gear as assistance. Importantly, when offering assistance to the American colleagues, President Putin is guided by the following consideration. When U.S. manufacturers of medical equipment gain momentum, they will be able to reciprocate if need be," he continued. Now, when the current situation affects each and every one and can be characterized as global, there is no alternative to working together in the spirit of partnership and mutual help. This is not the first time that Russia has sent supplies to the U.S. during times of emergency. They were one of the first countries to offer assistance in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, sending multiple jets with special evacuation gear, medical equipment, and a water cleansing system, a rescue helicopter, and 6 tons of drinking water. The U.S. has received other international aid shipments during the pandemic. Taiwan reportedly donated 100,000 masks to America's shores earlier this month. Furthermore, European Union member nations have been exchanging a number of supplies and services between countries over the course of the past month. And another thing that's happened that's similar is a Chinese company has shipped crates containing tens of thousands of respirator masks to Italy in the time of need. Consumer technology giant Xiaomi mailed the shipment to Italian Civil Protection Department, and they stapled to the side of the crates an ancient line of poetry from the Roman philosopher Seneca. "We are waves from the same sea, leaves from the same tree, and flowers from the same garden." The European country has had a terrible time, as you know, during the pandemic. And Xiaomi International has announced their donation on its Facebook page, saying that the company felt responsibility to a market that had welcomed them so warmly when they had been marketing their smartphones. They also uploaded the photos showing the lovingly prepared crates on their Facebook. The company's chief financial officer called it a source of great pride to be able to offer the help and praised the Italian government. Excellent job for the benefit of the whole community. Medical shortages of masks, test kits, respirators, and other goods are one of the major reasons why a country might find it difficult to control an outbreak, and the quality of the FFP3 masks sent from Xiaomi are the most effective available. It's really nice to see the world coming together during this to help each other out. I hope that these travel precautions will be short because I think it's important for us to be together right now and to be helping each other out. And I hope that this doesn't, I just hope that we get to thank these people soon And it's just so lovely to see. We're going to have to take a break, and we have a couple more things just like this when we return. So don't go anywhere. We've got more stories to come. Just stay through past the break.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about the generosity of countries sending each other some different things that were necessary to get through these times. And now, to help fight the novel coronavirus from that is now plaguing humanity, a new initiative by UC San Francisco physician scientists, dubbed COVID-19 citizen science, will allow anyone in the world, age 18 or over, to become a citizen scientist, advancing the understanding of the disease. The spread of coronavirus that causes COVID-19 has varied across individuals and regions, and the factors that determine how it affects individuals and populations are not that well understood. A critical mass of CCS participants uploading information through the app launched on March the 26th could help data crunching researchers gain insight on how the virus is spreading, to identify ways to predict and reduce the number of new infections, according to Gregory Marcus, professor at the Department of Medicine, UCSF, and co-leader of CCS. Based around the smartphone app, information on the study can be accessed via the Eureka sign-up website. If prompted, enter the study key COVID or text COVID to 41411. Marcus said that the researchers' hope is for the new study to go viral, with a goal to ultimately enroll more than 1 million individuals around the world. We are asking each participant to share the link to recruit at least 5 others, Marcus said. We want to demonstrate that the number of people signing up for this scientific study and contributing their data can increase exponentially faster than the disease itself. To illustrate this hoped-for exponential growth, the researchers plan to create and share data visualization that maps enrollment in CCS in real time, which Marcus hopes will show study participation outpacing the global spread of the virus. With widespread social distancing in place, and with quarantine isolation for some, public health studies can be challenging, Marcus said. But all that's needed to join CCS is a link and a smartphone to download the mobile-based app. Once enrolled, Participants will be asked to complete an initial 10 to 15-minute survey about their health and their daily habits. Follow-up questions delivered by push notifications or text message on an ongoing basis are expected to require 5 to 15 minutes per week. Participants will also be given the option of providing nearly continuous geolocation, GPS data, and soon additional data from Fitbit or Bluetooth-enabled biomonitoring devices, including blood pressure, weight, blood oxygen levels, body temperature, exercise, and sleep. In the long term, the collective participation of committed individuals, CCS, will help identify behaviors, influences, and factors that increase or decrease the risk of infection, or that affect outcomes after infection, Marcus said. The greater the number of participants, the greater the likelihood of statistically valid findings emerging from the study. CCS springs from a project called the Health eHeart Study, which Marcus launched in 2013 to harness online and mobile advances in order to collect and analyze cardiovascular information from study participants, not only using surveys, but also smartphone apps, portable blood pressure cuffs, and electrocardiogram smartphone cases. The experience, guided through Health eHeart, helped the UCSF team complete successfully when the National Institute of Health sought to establish a National Center for Mobile Health Research. The result is Eureka, a mobile app-focused health research platform that offers personnel and infrastructure, including cloud-based databases, so that it can handle very dense data from millions of participants to enable researchers get studies running up and quickly. Having already hosted 28 studies by various research teams on Eureka, the UCSF researchers decided to launch CCS on the platform to stretch beyond cardiology-focused research that enlisted UCSF colleagues from a variety of medical and research specialists to contribute ideas about survey questions and study parameters. We are likely a company that, during wartime, switches from making cars to making tanks, Marcus said. Health eHeart has already taken nearly 250,000 participants and spans more than 80 countries worldwide. They are accustomed to taking part in research, sharing personal medical information, and being pinged with questions. All they need to be asking, all they have been asked to be among the first to join and to invite others. With cell phones becoming essentially ubiquitous only in recent years, it's still early days for mobile health studies, Marcus says. But CCS has the potential to be the largest ever prospective epidemiological study of infectious disease, perhaps of any disease. In prospective studies, information is collected in real time instead of relying solely on retrospective memory and other information that can be gathered about past events. In general, prospective studies are considered more likely than retrospective studies and correctly identify associations between variables and risks. Social distancing keeps many protected, Marcus said, but joining together to contribute data will help us beat this thing. So if you're interested, make sure that you text COVID and download the app if you're interested in being a part of that. And when we come back from the break, we have a little story about a celebrity coming up. And and then that will go into another segment as well. So we've got quite a bit to get through today. So stay tuned, stay with us. We've got some great stories coming up, so don't go anywhere. Take a little break, and we'll be back soon with more of that news. So stay tuned.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about a scientific study that's happening to try and combat the virus. And now, legendary American rocker Jon Bon Jovi has dispelled tabloid rumors that he brews vitality potions under midsummer full moons in order to retain his dashing good looks by finally unveiling his private fountain of youth to the masses. Whether the singer's immortality will be considered a disqualifier for People's Magazine's sexiest artist remains to be seen, although users of the fountain continue to be revealed, such as Keanu Reeves, George Clooney, and Rob Lowe. However, Bon Jovi implied that his fellow New Jersey rock star rival Bruce Springsteen was denied access to the fountain because there can only be one. Circulating rumors concerning the original ownership of the fountain belonged to John Stamos and could also offer a clue as to why the dreamy 56-year-old actor felt compelled to do a Fuller House reunion. The fountain is said to be carved out of Grammy Awards, while the mystical waters contain ambrosia from Mount Olympus and New Jersey fangirls. Although Bon Jovi's hit song declares he's wanted dead or alive, we believe it's safe to say that the American soccer moms really just want him alive so that he can continue to bless them with chiseled cheekbones and Zoolander-esque blue steel expressions of rock and roll. Though the 58-year-old musician announces to the press to release the fountain and open it up to the public, a modest donation of $1 million is requested for use, with all contributions going to a new Keith Richards mortality betting pool. Okay, so that wasn't a real story, but I just wanted to lighten the mood and cut up some of this news about the virus, which we obviously have to cover because that is what is in the news these days. But that's kind of a fun idea, isn't it? He's got to be drinking some sort of fountain, right? Anyway, in a bid to attract even more customers to their platform, Uber has just announced that they will be launching a new ride service that allows passengers to request a canine driver. The service, which is being called Uber ARF, will employ a team of specialized mid to large-sized pups as drivers in several major U.S. cities. The pups will reportedly be receiving a wage of 4 treats and 3 belly rubs per hour, although Uber representatives declined to comment on whether this is constituted as equal pay. Though cats were also considered as employees for the project, an Uber spokesperson said that some of their passengers experienced discomfort over their sense of ominous threat emanating from the feline drivers during early trials of the program. Plus, the cat's legs were reportedly too short to reach the gas pedals. In contrast to the mixed reviews of the grouchier feline counterparts during the 6-week pilot program, The canine drivers were shown to receive remarkably high reviews from passengers. We were stunned by the positive feedback to the program, Uber spokesperson Charles Dane told the Good News Network in an email. One of our canine drivers received a 5-star review from all 657 of his passengers. Never in Uber's history have we had a driver who's maintained an entirely perfect 5-star rating. But judging the passenger comments, I guess these new drivers are just really good boys. We did detect some hesitation in a few of the reviews. Some people would say things like, "Where's the driver's credentials?" or "I didn't know that dogs were legally allowed to drive in the state of California." But otherwise, the response was pretty phenomenal. The researchers are now trying to iron out some issues with the project before it is made available to the public. For starters, some of the canine drivers were prone to unexpected detours, which involved swerving off the road in pursuit of squirrels, but many of the mutts blamed these incidents on the Uber app's faulty navigational system. Regardless of the hiccups, Uber representatives are optimistic about the project's launch. We figure that if we have cat cafes and goat yoga, then our passengers deserve and experience the unique joy of hiring canine drivers, the company said in a statement. Okay, so maybe that one wasn't a real story either. Those were just a couple of silly stories that were written on the Good News Network about, because it was April Fool's Day. And I don't know how many of you actually celebrated April Fool's Day. It's kind of fun, it's kind of silly to celebrate it, I suppose. Just kind of like little kind of mock silly things. But yeah, it's good to have a little bit of fun here and there, and those were kind of cute little mock stories, so I just wanted to share them with you. Because it's really important to maintain having fun at this time and, play around with each other and have fun with your friends and your family during this. I don't know what you've been doing to make sure that you're still having fun, but there is this app that I've been using to Skype some of my friends and play games with them. It's called House Party. And you can sort of video chat while you play various games with the person on the other end. So yeah, it's very cool. I really enjoyed it so far. It's a good way to, keep things fun and keep things interesting. And, yeah, just remember to have fun and yeah, just keep going. Keep trying to have fun with each other. Keep trying to play and, you're not so bored sitting by yourself in your apartment all the time. Because, you need to remember that this is for a good cause, and it's so that we don't overwhelm the hospitals, and so that so we can, kind of curb this thing as soon as possible. Try to flatten that curve. Very, very important to flatten that curve right now. It's, it's time to end this. So if we all stick together, we can do that. We can end it. We can stop this thing together. So yeah, keep entertained, keep having fun, keep playing some little pranks on each other. Why not? Write some mock stories for April Fool's Day. Pretty funny stuff. We've got to take another break. Coming right up before I start another story. So we will be taking a break. But when we come back, we're going to have kind of a crazy story that sounds like it's an April Fool's joke, but it's not. This one's actually real. It seems kind of silly. But it is, it's real. So we're going to talk about that really cute story that I thought was really kind of sweet. So, yeah, we're going to do that when we come back from the break. So definitely stay tuned for that. It's a very interesting one.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about some April Fool's stories, and now this one's going to sound like an April Fool's joke, but it's actually not. This is a real story. So let's just listen to this. I know it sounds crazy. A determined English runner completed a half marathon from his balcony, quarantined home earlier this week, by running the length of his balcony 5,000 times. 27-year-old Sam Hustler completed the 13-mile, 21-kilometer trek by completing 5,000 laps on the balcony of his flat. Prior to the shutdowns, he'd been training to run in the London Landmarks Half Marathon, which would have taken him past such sites as Big Ben, St. Paul's Cathedral, and the Shard. But due to the government-imposed restrictions, the race was canceled. It was going to be my first ever half marathon, and I was excited to do it. So it was devastating when it was canceled, said Hustler. I had to put so much training in it, and it's just great because I'm running for, and I wanted to do it any way I could. Organizers encourage runners to get creative and identify their local landmarks in a map to run around hidden gems of their area on a solo run. However, Hustler and his girlfriend Chloe have been self-isolating since she developed a fever and a cough last week. We've been self-isolating from Monday. We're fine, just more of a precaution, really. Took my decision to work from home and not go out because my mother works for the NHS and my dad has health issues, so we didn't want to risk spreading anything to vulnerable people. I saw a video of a man in Italy who ran a full marathon in his balcony, so I thought I could do a half marathon of my own. I did a little 2K run on Tuesday and I thought, well, it's boring, but I can do it. So, with nothing but views from his third-floor apartment, he completed the run in 3 hours, with his girlfriend, of course, cheering him on. Hustler, an amateur cricket player who'd never ran more than 11 miles, said that he'd been training so hard for the half marathon and he did not want the training to go to waste. He also wanted to honor his commitment to raising money for Haven House Children's Hospice, a charity which supports children with life-threatening or life-limiting illnesses. I really wanted to do it for Haven House and to raise money as much as possible, said Hustler. They've been going since 1990 and they've just put up an emergency appeal for funding. All their fundraising events have been canceled and their charity shops have been closed. It was a major source of their income. They're an amazing charity that believes the best possible life for a baby and child with life-limited, life-threatening conditions. They do so much for families who live in my community, and I've seen the work they've done, which is absolutely amazing. Although Hustler originally planned on running a half marathon to raise £500 For Haven House, his backyard stunt has thus far managed to raise more than 1,900 pounds, which is the equivalent of $2,400. So good on you. Good hustle, hustler. I know it sounds like a fake story, but it's not. Another story, this is related to animals, but this one is real, so I wanted to spread it out a little bit. Cats have a reputation for being aloof and independent, but this study of the way that domestic cats respond to their caregivers suggests that their socio-cognitive abilities and the depth of their human attachments have been underestimated. The findings, reported in the journal Current Biology on September the 23rd, might have been the first to show that much like children and dogs, pet cats form secure and insecure bonds with their human caretakers. The findings suggest that this bonding ability across species must be explained by traits that aren't specific to canines, the researchers say. Like dogs, cats display social flexibility in regard to their attachments with humans, says Kristen Vitale of Oregon State University. The majority of cats are securely attached to their owner and use them as a source of security in a novel environment. One revealing way to study human attachment behavior is to observe an infant's response to a reunion with their caregiver following a brief absence in a novel environment. When a caregiver returns, secure infants quickly return to relaxed exploration, while insecure individuals engage in excessive clinging or avoidance behavior. Similar tests have been run before with primates and dogs. So Vitale and her colleagues decided to run the same test, only this time with cats. During the test, an adult cat or kitten spent 2 minutes in a novel room with their caregiver, followed by 2 minutes alone. Then they had a 2-minute reunion. The cat's response to seeing their owners again were classified into attachment styles. The results show that cats bond in a way that's surprisingly similar to infants. In humans, 65% of infants are securely attached to their caregiver. Domestic cats mirrored very closely, Vitale said. In fact, they classified about 65% of both cats and kittens securely bonded to their people. The findings show that cats' human attachments are stable and present in adulthood. The social flexibility may have helped facilitate the success of the species of human homes, Vitale says. The researchers are now exploring the importance of this work in relation to the thousands of kittens and cats that wind up in animal shelters. We're currently looking at several aspects of cat attachment behavior, including whether socialization and fostering opportunities impact the attachment security in shelter cats, Vitale said. So since we've all been home quite a bit, I thought that was like a bit of interesting news to hear that cats form these attachments to their owners. So if you've been home recently, you might have noticed your cat was either more affectionate than usual or more standoffish. So that could explain that. And maybe they're just absolutely thrilled to have you around. I know I've experienced that with my cat. Being away for a while, coming home, she's just like overjoyed and very affectionate, super clingy. So I guess she's got a little bit of an insecure one, but that's because I don't live there very often. So yeah, be kind to your cats and cuddle them and love them. When we come back, we have more of the same sort of deal. So stay tuned for more news when we come back from the break.
Pets bring such joy to our lives, and the GSMC Pets podcast is here to share in that joy. We'll tell stories of pets finding their forever homes, acting in unexpected ways, being helpful, or just being silly. Whether you love dogs, cats, llamas, reptiles, fish, or you've never met an animal you didn't like, the GSMC Pets podcast is for you.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about cats forming attachments, much like babies or dogs would. And now, as more and more U.S. states and world regions implement the various stay-at-home orders and shutdowns, some of the areas that have been hit the hardest by the virus are showing that the more restrictions, the more it works. Since symptoms of the novel coronavirus generally start to show within 2 weeks of infection, today's infections are the result of interactions from early March. China has slowly begun lifting the strict social restrictions since their quarantine regulation helped the nation recover from the virus. It's now been roughly 2 weeks since Italy ordered a nationwide lockdown amidst the outbreaks. And the rates of infection have steadily been declining since the first recorded death on the 21st of February. According to the Times of Israel, the daily infection rate in Italy reached a high of 57% in early March, but last week it reached a record low of 7.5%. The slowdown in the infections growth rate is extremely positive, the World Health Organization Deputy Director Ranieri Guerra reportedly told Italy's Capital Radio. I think the measures taken by Italy are absolutely correct, perhaps with a certain delay at the start, but that's understandable. Similarly, in the U.S., 6 Bay Area counties became the first in the nation to implement stay-at-home orders in March, followed by Governor Gavin Newsom's statewide order 3 days later. Although many Californian hospitals have been struggling to address ventilator and bed shortages, some researchers report that the virus has been spreading slower than they initially thought, and that's likely because of lockdowns. Dr. Timothy Deister, a resident physician from the University of California, San Francisco, published some encouraging data sets on Twitter, illustrating how the weeks-long uptick in infections fell for the first time this week, and it may indicate the continuing decline in infection rates. These data should be regarded as a cheer from the sidelines on this marathon we're running together. It's been hard work and sacrifice, and it will continue to be. But there might be some early evidence that these efforts are paying off. So please keep staying home and keep washing your hands. Jahan Fahmy, another physician from UCSF, added, "We've been anxiously awaiting the surge of the COVID-19 patients in San Francisco. The number of hospital cases increased slowly daily, but it hit me today. We are in a flattened curve. While the surge is still coming, we have time. Each day we get more prepared. By delaying the surge, hospitals have time to get ventilators, open respiratory isolation wards, stockpile PPE, integrate telemedicine, expand testing, train workforce, and learn from the colleagues in the hotspots. Officials in Seattle told the New York Times this week that their lockdowns are also reflecting a decline in new cases, as a rate of individual person-to-person infections has reportedly fallen from 2.7 to 1.4. With 29 American states now maintaining stay-at-home orders, Kinsa Health, a company that's been producing and distributing internet-connected thermometers, launched an online map of the country, which depicted rates of fevers, colds, and flus. Within days of creating a map on March the 22nd, the researchers noted a significant decline in commonly transmitted sickness. Although the map does not offer evidence that social restrictions are curbing the COVID-19 cases, the Time does report that new data sets from New York and Washington have confirmed the trends illustrated by the map. Not only that, Kinsa Health's influenza predictions have reportedly been 2 and 3 weeks ahead of those from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And the company is now working to share their technology with government health agencies to continue monitoring disease trends for the public. As of March 30th, we've seen illness levels in New York City drop to normal levels for this time of year. And we're seeing similar trends across the country, writes the company. This does not mean that the COVID-19 cases are declining. In fact, we expect to see reported cases continue to surge in the near term, but this data indicates that these measures are starting to slow the spread. This is really good news, but I cannot stress enough that this is amazing. This is so fantastic that this is stopping the spread, and it is going to, well, not stopping, but it's slowing the spread. And that is fantastic news, but still cannot stress enough that it's starting to slow because of being in lockdown, and because of not going outside, and because of washing your hands vigorously and staying away and social distancing, and seeing these like they said, it's very, very early days. It's very early data. So we are going to need to stick this out for a while. And I know everyone is probably getting so antsy. You can refer back to earlier episodes where I gave quite a few examples of what to do while you're in isolation. But it's absolutely worth it if we can slow this thing in time for professionals to figure out how to treat it properly and to get the right equipment in and to keep themselves safe as well while this is all happening. So, that's fantastic news. It's really, really good news. So, with that said, I think we need to take another break now. And when we come back from the break, we're going to do our On This Day in History for today's date. Today is actually April 2nd that I'm recording it, so we're going to do that one. Because we already did the sort of April Fool's kind of pranky stories halfway through. So stay tuned for On This Day in History when we return from the break.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about how the spread is actually being slowed with the efforts that we are doing with the isolation. So really maintain that because it is starting to work. And now, on this day, 100 years ago, Jack Webb was born. The actor, screenwriter, director, producer, created the iconic police franchise, Dragnet, and starred as the Los Angeles detective, Sergeant Joe Friday. The series was based on real cases from LAPD police files and featured authentic depictions of cops in their daily work in the 50s and 60s, which were portrayed like the working class heroes they were. Webb also wrote The Badge, true and terrifying crime stories that could not be presented on TV, from the creator and star of Dragnet. He also launched a spin-off called Adam 12, which ran for 7 successful seasons, and later Emergency, which ran for 6. After dying of a heart attack at age 62, he was given a funeral with full LA police honors. In the city, retired badge number 714 in honor of Joe Friday. Mayor Bradley ordered all city flags to be lowered to half staff, and Webb was buried with a replica LAPD badge 714 with the rank of sergeant. Webb also loved playing jazz on his cornet and had a collection of more than 6,000 jazz recordings. The story you're about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, is how each Dragnet episode would begin. And if you want to see it, please look online, take a look at it, so you can see the work that he did. And now, Ludwig van Beethoven's Symphony No. 1 in C was first performed as part of a public benefit concert at the Burke Theater, although reviews were decidedly cool, and that was in 1800. My Lord. Hans Christian Andersen, the children's author, was born in Denmark in 1805. American inventor Joseph Dixon of Salem, Massachusetts, began manufacturing his now widespread lead pencils in 1827. The first Easter egg hunt for kids was held on the White House lawn in 1878. The first full-time movie theater in the United States opened in Los Angeles, California, with the name Electric Theater. Jeannette Rankin began her term as first Congresswoman member of the U.S. House of Representatives in Congress in 1917. Rakesh Sharma is launched aboard Soyuz T-11 and becomes the first Indian in space in 1984. Rita Johnson, the first female premier of a Canadian province, took office in 1991. And in 2007, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are air pollutants under the Clean Air Act. Today is also the 13th annual World Autism Awareness Day, which encourages tolerance for those with neural development disorders that affect approximately 1 out of every 150 children around the world who have an inability to socialize. And on this day, in 1974, the egg rolling race, famous to all modern White House Easter celebrations, was first introduced. With spoons borrowed from the White House kitchen and hard-boiled eggs prepared and dyed by the White House chefs, children push and roll the eggs on the way to the finish line. This year, more than 30,000 people took part in the event, with the first family's dog, Bo, the main attraction. And on this day in 1968, 2001, A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick, made its world premiere in Washington, D.C., considered by critics and directors to be one of the top 10 best films of all time. The adapted screenplay, which features an AI computer named Hal, was co-authored by writer and futurist Arthur C. Clarke. Lauded for its pioneering special effects, philosophic themes, memorable music, and scientifically accurate depictions of spaceflight, the film was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Director, Screenplay, and it won for visual effects. On this day in 1939, the soul singer, songwriter, musician Marvin Gaye was born in Washington, D.C. The Prince of Motown helped to shape the sound of the 1960s with a string of hits, like I Heard It Through the Grapevine, the best-selling Motown hit of all time. The pianist's 1970 composition, What's Going On, written about an act of police brutality on anti-war rally that was called too political for radio by Motown founder Berry Gordy, who refused to release it. Gaye responded by going on a strike from the recording until the label released the song. It reached number 1 and sold over 2 million copies. It was the title track of the LP that Rolling Stone hailed as Album of the Year, which also yielded 2 more top 10 singles that year, including Mercy, Mercy Me. Gaye's next LP, Let It Get On, stayed in the charts for 2 years and sold over 3 million copies. His following albums contained I Want You and Gotta Give Up, and 2 more number 1 hits. After a nasty breakup with Motown Records, Gaye recorded Sexual Healing with CBS, one of his biggest hits, and went in a double Grammy winner. Unfortunately, he had to move in with his parents after relapsing, and then he passed away after a bit of tragedy. But happy birthday, Martin Gaye. All right, so thank you for listening to the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Broadcast Network. Podcast, not broadcast. This is not broadcast. This is not live. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show, and if you could write us a nice review and rate the episode, that also really helps us. Also, please follow us on all social medias, so Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Stay home, stay safe, keep washing your hands, find some creative ways to have fun, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good night. Talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast.